Welcome to Table for One. I'm the narrator, and in today's video, I've got some beginner tips for Earthborne Rangers. So if you're new to this game, I'm going to tell you everything you need to know to construct your first deck. Let's get rolling. Alright, so I am ready to teach you how to construct your character deck for Earthborne Rangers, and this is assuming you are brand new not only to the game, but probably brand new to this type of game. And so I'm going to give you all the information you need, and I will also avoid any spoilers. I will be showing you cards in this video, but they are all the cards that you would normally see during the deck construction process, so they're all sort of pre-game, if you will, before the campaign starts. Now, a couple things to note before I get started. One, of course, there's chapter markers. I'm going to do this in three big sections. So first I'll give sort of a overview, and then the bulk of the video will be the middle section where I'm just giving specifics on the deck construction process, and then I'll end with a few general tips about your deck. And I also want to note that I'm recording this right after fulfillment of the Legacy of the Ancestors campaign. Now, Legacy of the Ancestors isn't relevant to constructing your deck for Earthborne Rangers, but the Stewards of the Valley expansion is also out in the wild now. So I will talk about that as well if you have it, how to integrate that and what I recommend or don't recommend for your first playthrough. So really the two things we'll be interacting with are the core game box, the base game box, and Stewards of the Valley if you have it. And if you don't have it, that's totally fine. This is still relevant. If you're watching this in the future and other expansions have been released, I'll probably make some content at that time to cover those specific expansions. But let's get started. We're going to go into the overview section. I've got a couple things to say here. First, if deck construction is really just not your thing, Earthborne Rangers on the website has various pre-made decks. So you can just go on the website, and I'll put a link down in the description if you want to find that. It just says, here's the cards, build your deck, go play. So if you just want to skip that process entirely, if you don't think it's fun and exciting, then you don't have to do it. Go to the Earthborne Games website, again, link in the description, use one of the pre-made decks. It's going to be fairly well balanced, and you can just get going. The second thing that I want to say is there is a prologue at the beginning of the campaign booklet. So just very briefly, here's Lure of the Valley. You open it up to the first page and it starts with prologue. If you play through the prologue, that will walk you through the deck construction process. So you don't have to do it just from the rule book. You can go play the prologue and that'll kind of walk you through it as well. So know that that resource is available. But that being said, you are here. So let me go ahead and get started on my overview. So the first thing I want to say is the very first time you construct a deck in Earthborne Rangers, just pick the cards that seem cool. You're going to construct this deck based on the vibes. And the reason I say that is because you don't know what you don't know, and you're not really going to know what's a good deck or a balanced deck or what sorts of things you want to do until you've kind of tried the game a little bit. So you don't know what you don't know. Pick things that seem cool. That's totally valid. That's how we're going to start. Now, I talked about this a little bit in my video last week where I gave a bunch of spoiler-free advice or sort of things that I wish I knew before I started playing Earthborne Rangers. And I mentioned in the campaign guide, the campaign tracker. So here's your whole campaign. It's a series of 30 days. Each time you play is one day, and you cross out the days as you go. These first 3 days are kind of like an extended prologue where you kind of learn how to play a little bit, and it's very flexible, very open. And so it is 100% okay when you start day 2 or day 3 or both. Just build a new deck if you don't like what you did the previous time. Those first few days are just sort of intro mode. You don't need to start the whole thing over just because you built a new deck. Just figure it out in those first 3 days. And if you get to the end of day 3 and you still don't feel like you know what you're doing or your deck isn't right, play day 3 again. Who cares? Just keep adding extra days in between day 3 and day 4 until you feel like you know what you're doing. Once you've got your deck sort of settled, move on to day 4 and then keep the same deck from that point on. That is 100% okay. And then also just know going into the game that throughout the course of playing, you will have opportunities to either earn new reward cards that you do not have access to during the deck construction, or you may have the ability to swap cards in and out from your starting deck using other starting cards that you did not choose. So you are not like totally locked into this deck of 30 cards that you built at the beginning. You'll have opportunities to adjust it as you go. So don't feel like you're stuck with these cards and the other stuff you're not going to use at all. You'll definitely have access to it at some point. So those are the things to just sort of keep in mind as we're going along here. But now let's get into the bulk of the video, into the specifics of how to construct this deck. And I'm going to go in a little bit different order than the rule book would have you, just because I think it's better. But to give you a quick overview of what goes into your deck, you are going to have one aspect card, which you can tell is going to look something like this, and it'll go here. One role card, this is going to have a picture of your ranger on it. You will have personality cards, and you will have 4 different pairs of those that are all called attributes. You will have 4 pairs of attributes. You will have a background and a specialty. This is the bulk of your deck, and each, your background and your specialty, you will choose 5 pairs of cards. And finally, you will have 1 outside interest, which will be 1 final pair of cards. So your aspect and your role, there's 1 of each, but everything else that goes into your ranger deck when you initially construct your deck will be pairs of identical cards. So you'll have 15 pairs of cards for a deck of 30 cards. So as I said, your deck will evolve as you play. You'll have the opportunity to swap in, earn rewards, or switch some cards with other starting cards that you may not have chosen initially. And you should just know that when you do that in the future, even though you start with 15 pairs of cards, you can break those pairs. So like you get some reward cards, and you're like, I want to take out just one of these 2 and replace it with this 1 card. So you will not always have pairs of things. You can break it by the end of the game if you choose, and if you play this way, perhaps you'll have a deck of 30 unique cards instead of 15 pairs. So you can do that. But what you may never do is have more than 2 copies of the same card. So there may be, if you have the Ranger Doubler pack, you may have like 4 copies of some cards. And that's fine to have in the box, but you may never have more than 2 cards, 2 of the same card in your deck ever for any reason, as far as I know. Perhaps there's going to be future content that overrides that, but I sort of doubt it. And finally, I'll talk about tags more, but all your cards will have various tags. So you can see this one has the tags Gear, Conduit, Expert. That expert tag, you may only have it if you have the associated specialty or background from the deck that card came from. So I'll talk more about these expert tags later, but just be aware of that one has special significance. So the first place to start is by choosing an aspect. And so there's a bunch of aspect cards here. This is how they look. Now, any of these that have the number 4 on it comes from the Stewards of the Valley expansion. If this is your first playthrough, and I assume it is if you're watching this video, I would not use any aspect card that has a 4 on it because it's less balanced than all the base game ones. So all the base game ones are going to be a 3, 2, 2, 1. So all of these add up to 8, but basically this is the amount of each of these 4 aspects that you have. So awareness, spirit, fitness, and focus. And this allows you to do things in the game. So 3, 2, 2, 1 means you're going to be a little higher in one thing, a little lower in one other thing. These 4, 2, 2, 1s mean you're going to be really good at one thing and pretty low in 2 things. And that's more of a challenge. I would not do that on my first playthrough. I do not recommend it. So pick an aspect card and pick one that is a 3, 2, 2, 1 in whatever order. So here's 3, 2, 2, 1 like this, and 3, 2, 2, 1 like this. You're going to be a 3 in one thing, a 1 in another thing, and the rest are 2s. Go ahead and pick an aspect card, and again, just do it based off of vibes for now. But the one caveat to that is I would make either awareness or focus your 1 for your first playthrough. Anything else can be the 3. I would recommend probably either spirit or fitness. One of them be a 3, the other be a 2, but it's up to you. But make either awareness or focus your 1. The reason is you're going to be using these aspects to take tests. I might do another video on tests if that's something people want. So all of these all these aspects are important and you will use them throughout the game, but the two most common, most important tests are Traverse, which uses fitness, and Connect, which uses spirit. If you have one on either one of those, you're going to have a really tough playthrough, especially if you're doing true solo. I talked in my video last week, I recommend playing two-handed for a number of reasons. But I would definitely start out with either awareness or focus as your one. Now, let's just say that we've got this one. Just for fun, that's the one that we pick. This will affect all of the other cards that we have access to, and I'll show you how. So in a step in the future here, we're going to be picking a background and we're going to be picking a specialty. And so when you pick one of those, you grab that whole deck of cards and you're going to be selecting some cards from that deck. Now in this left-hand side, there is going to be a little color bar here. And so this one says 1 AWA, that's 1 awareness. You can only take this card into your deck if your awareness is at least at 1. Now, there's never a 0 option, at least for any of the content released today. But you can see if I go over to, say, Focus, this card, A Deeper Understanding, requires at least 2 focus to put this into your deck. I only have a focus of 1, so I would not have access to this card. So I would only be able to take cards with a focus of 1. And so that's part of the decision making here. So I'll put these cards away for now, but that is the significance of aspects, and that's why you've got to pick that first, because that will determine all the other cards that you do or do not have access to. And so this deck that I'll be giving you examples from is the Shepherd background deck. And so these are Ranger cards. Ranger cards have this background that match here and here if you have one of these playmats. And so your background and your specialty and your outside interest, they are all going to be Ranger cards, and your personality cards, your attributes. Those will all be Ranger cards as well. So we should talk about the types of Ranger cards that are in here, just so you know. So the first is gear. So here's a gear. This is a Paratrepsis whistle. Now you know it's a gear because it starts with the tag gear, and then it may have other tags that do other things that you'll discover as you play. But this is a gear, and the thing you need to know about gear is in the top right corner there's going to be little blocks here. So this has 1 blue block on it. I guess the color isn't really relevant. It has a blue block because it's a blue card. Here's a red one. This one has 1 block on it as well. Some of them might have 2 blocks or 3 blocks. I don't know that I've seen a 4 or 5, but they're probably out there. What to know about these blocks is in your equipped gears section here, you may never have more than 5 blocks worth of gear. So you've got the whistle and you've got this essays on shepherding. You might put other gear out. Some of them might be 2, some of them might be 3. It's going to take up your gear slots. So just be aware of that as you're selecting gear. You don't want to have too much more gear than you can fully equip. But you'll find out more about that as you play. But that's how gear works. So these are gear cards. That's one type of card you may find. Another type of card is the moment card. It'll have this moment tag on it. Moment cards, you play the card to do a thing, and oftentimes it's a response. So it's in response to something else. So when something happens, play this card, and it allows you to do whatever the effect is. So gear and moments are the first 2 type of Ranger cards that you're going to run across. The third type of broad category are attachments. So that'll have the attachment tag there. An attachment card, when you play it, is attached to another card. So this one says attached to a predator. So when there's a predator out, you can play this card, you pay the cost, you attach it, and now this says the attached card loses the predator trait. So this lets you interact with other cards, either adding a trait or removing a trait or having some type of effect that you can now do on that card. So there are attachments. The fourth type of card you might come across are beings. And in the case of your Ranger cards, these are generally going to be companions. So this is like some type of animal that's going to hang out with you and do stuff. So these are, generally friendly and persistent and unique. Those are common things to see on companion cards, but this is some sort of animal that will be helpful to you, some type of pet or work animal or both. And the last type of card you will see is an attribute. Attribute cards do not generally have a cost. It's just going to have these approach icon symbols on them. So generally when you're playing a test, when you're doing a test, you can play your attribute cards with it to sort of boost your power on that test. So that's the fifth main type of card you'll see in your Ranger deck. Now there are a couple of small exceptions to that. You don't really need to worry too much about it, but like the Explorer specialty, for example, has Hidden Trail. This is a feature. So that doesn't fit into the other categories, but this basically acts like an attachment with sort of an extra step. So it's possible you'll see something else such as a feature. And the Spirit Speaker specialty that comes with Stewards of the Valley has a lot of beings in it that are not companions. They are spirits, so it kind of interacts with that specialty type. Again, I wouldn't worry too much about that. But I'll just recap that. Those are the types of cards that you're going to be selecting from. You're going to have gear. You equip a gear. It allows you to do stuff, but you can't have more than 5 blocks of gear. You're going to have moments. These are just play a card to do a thing, often in response to something else. You'll have attachments, which are cards that get attached to other cards, and it'll modify those cards in some way. You can have beings, which are generally like working animals that are sort of pets, and they'll help you in various ways. And then finally, you'll have attributes. These will mostly be in the personality type, but you could see them elsewhere. And these are really just for committing approach icons to tests. So now that you kind of know what's in there, we've got our aspect. The next thing you're going to do is pick a background. So the backgrounds from the base game that you have to choose from are Artisan, the Forager, the Shepherd, and the Traveler. And if you have Stewards of the Valley, that also adds Tailspinner. I would say Tailspinner is totally fine if you are new to the game. You can choose that background if you want. So based off of those 5 backgrounds, or 4 if you just have the base game, or more if they release more someday, pick one of those backgrounds that just sounds cool to you, and then grab that whole deck. So again, here is the Shepherd deck. So there's all these cards. What you're going to do is you are going to pick any 5 of these cards that, again, looking at the banner on the left side, you meet the aspect requirement for. So take any 5 of them and you take a pair of them. You take 2 of them. So that's the first thing you're going to do. Now, this says, like this top one, you need 1 awareness. I have 3 awareness. It does not need to be an exact match. It needs to be at least 1. So I have 3. I could take this one if I want. And as far as I know, everything in here is 1 to 3. So if you did not follow my advice and you picked an aspect card with 4 on it, you should be able to take anything. If you have a 3, you should also be able to take anything from that type. So I would just recommend, again, go based on vibes, things that seem cool, but you might want to try and have some sort of mix of probably gear and moments. Those are going to be the most common. The least common are probably going to be beings. So you might not have any access to beings. Don't worry about that if that's the case. Get a few attachments if you think they make sense. But really just look at the titles. Make sure you meet whatever the requirement is on the left, and grab things that seem cool. The other thing you might want to do is have a mix of, you can probably see the 4 color types here. So there's the green cards you pay for with awareness. So if I want to put this card into play, the cost is 1 awareness. So you probably want to have some sort of mix as well, but you're going to have more awareness on any given turn based off of this particular aspect than you will focus. So even though you can have this whistle and you can also have this recorder, because they both have a 1 focused requirement, you wouldn't be able to play them both on the same turn because it costs 1 focus to play, and then you won't be able to do the other one. So you might not want to overload your 1 aspect type, and you can probably go a little heavier on your 3 aspect type, but try and have some sort of mix of all the aspect types in here. So pick 5, again, types of cards from your selected background that you meet the requirements for, and grab pairs of them. So 5 pairs of cards from your background. Now, one other thing to note on backgrounds, if you're playing with Stewards of the Valley, is In each of the 5 backgrounds, including the one that comes with Stewards of the Valley, there's going to be a card. So this one is Zoological Recorder. It takes 1 focus. We have 1 focus, so we would have access to it. And it has this aspiration on it. And it's associated with these 2 narrative cards. There's an introduction card and an aspiration complete card. So there's 1 aspiration card in each of the 5 backgrounds. I would recommend avoiding these for your first playthrough. They're fun, they're cool, they're nice to have, but these have like an additional mechanic that this is telling you to like try and do a thing, and every time you do it, you need to track it on your campaign tracker, and when you've done it X amount of times, then you can read this narrative and get a reward. It's like another little mini system within the game, and it's just a lot to keep track of if it's your first time through and you don't really know what you're doing yet. So I would avoid taking any of the aspiration cards on your first time through. Now, once you've done that, you are going to do the exact same thing with a specialty. So the specialties that come with the base game are Artificer, Conciliator, Explorer, and Shaper. And then Stewards of the Valley adds Spirit Speaker. If this is your first playthrough, I would recommend you avoid Shaper because Shaper has some additional mechanics that it's one more thing to sort of keep track of as you're learning the game, and you kind of want to lower that barrier to entry as you're going through that learning curve. So it's got these cards called manifestations, and you have to have certain tokens on other cards in order to be able to play them. And that's sort of that's how all the Shaper cards work. So it's like another thing to balance. I would avoid that. And I would also avoid Spirit Speaker. If you've got Stewards of the Valley, I would not choose that specialty. That one's more complicated as well. Normally, you have access to 4 basic tests at any time when you're playing Earthborne Rangers, but if you are a Spirit Speaker, you can switch into Spirit mode, and then you gain access to 4 different basic tests. And so it's like a whole other level to manage. So I would recommend don't pick either of those specialties for your first time through. So either pick Artificer, Conciliator, or Explorer. And so I've got the Conciliator deck here. These cards on top, these are roll cards. We will come back to these. But the rest of the deck is going to be just like the background deck. It works the same way. You are going to want to pick 5 unique cards and take pairs of them and add those to your deck. So at this point, you will have your 5 pairs of background cards, and then you'll add 5 pairs of specialty cards. Now, these are going to work the same way as far as these requirements go. On the left, you've got to have the correct aspect, or enough of each of the aspects to be able to take this into your deck. And these are going to be all the same type of cards that you saw in the backgrounds. It's going to be, gear and moments and attachments and potentially beings and attributes. So get 5 of those. Again, try and get some sort of variety. Maybe, with your first 5 cards, it won't be, there's only 4 types of aspects. You're going to be a little heavy on something. Maybe try and balance it out when you go through your specialty. Now, don't worry about these roll cards. I'm going to set these aside for now, but we will come back to them. But the roll cards are associated with your specialty. Now, this next part is probably going to take the most amount of time and give you the least amount of cards. But this is where you pick your outside interest. So you pick a deck of either background cards or specialty cards, which are not your own background or specialty. So we were looking at the Shepherd background earlier. So let's say we took 5 Shepherd cards. Maybe I want my outside interest to be from the Forager background. So then I take the Forager deck. And from this deck, I pick any one card that, again, I meet the aspect requirement for, and I take that and add it to my deck again as a pair. So this 1 awareness green thumb attachment, maybe I want that. So I take that pair, add it to my deck. So again, you take 1 card from either a background or a specialty that is not your background or specialty. And green thumb is actually, I'm glad I used that example because this one has the expert tag. So again, you may not in this step take a card that has an expert tag because the expert cards are reserved for people who either have that background or that specialty. So I wouldn't be able to take green thumb in this case, but I could take this moment local fair. It is not expert. needs 1 awareness. I have 3. So I could take a couple copies of this and add it into my deck. Green Thumb I would not have access to. So that is your outside interest. And one other note, I mentioned earlier there was 1 aspiration card included in each background if you have Stewards of the Valley. Each of the aspiration cards, I recommended not using them, but just so you know, each of the aspiration cards does have the expert tag, so you cannot take any of the aspiration cards as your outside interest either. So at this point, you should have 5 pairs of background cards, 5 pairs of specialty cards, and 1 pair of outside interest cards. So that's 22 cards. We need to get our last 8 cards for our Ranger deck, and these are going to be your personality cards. So that's going to be the deck of cards that looks like this. Now these are generally the weakest cards in the game, so I wouldn't worry too much about it. The rulebook would have you take these first after gaining your aspect, but I think it's better to gain them here because, again, these are the weakest cards. You generally can't do much with them. You can't put them into play. They don't have a cost in the top left. It's just when you take a test, you can spend the symbols on these cards to sort of improve your odds on the test. Now, again, they're going to have that same requirement in the bar on the left side. So these are 1 awareness, these are 2 awareness, some of them will be 3s, there's 3 fitness, so I wouldn't be able to take this one. Some of them have some sort of, let's go here, some of them have some sort of ability on it, so this one says, after you succeed at a test in which you committed this attribute, you may suffer 1 fatigue to add it back to your hand. So I could play this for the heart, and then if I succeed the test, I can take a fatigue and put this back in my hand rather than discard it. So some of them will have an effect. There's a couple different effects on these, so read the text. Some of them, surely I can find one, like this one. This one requires 2 fitness, so we could take this one. This is bold. It just gives you 2 of these exploration symbols, and there's nothing but flavor text here on it, so it doesn't do anything else. It's literally just, here's these 2 symbols. So like I said, I mean, it's not bad to have those symbols. It's still a decent card, but some of these literally do nothing but give you the symbols. Some of them have some sort of twist where they allow you to do something else. But I would take this opportunity. So you can't just take these willy-nilly. You have to take 1 of each energy type. So 1 awareness type, 1 of these fitness type, 1 focus type, and 1 spirit type. You've got to take 1 of each. And again, when you find the one that you meet the requirement for that you want, take a pair of them. So you will have 1 pair in each of these 4 types, and those will be your last 8 cards in your deck. Now, what else did I want to mention about these? Yes. At this point, like I said, you should have your background cards and your specialty cards and your outside interest. Look at all these symbols on them, because that's these approach icons. That's most of what these cards are doing. See which of the icons you are lacking in, and see if you can sort of even things out a little bit with these cards, and try and build up access to just all these symbols. Because as you're playing through the game, you're going to be taking lots of tests, and there's just tests all over the place in the game, and there's going to be different combinations of these aspect types and these symbols. And so if you have very few of, we'll say, very few of these hearts, which are connection symbols, if you run across a test that requires focus and connection, you're going to have a really hard time with it. So you want to have some kind of balance in the approach icons on all of your cards. Now, most of your other cards, you're going to want to use them to do the thing that the card says, but they can be used for their approach icons also. These are approach icons only, so just try and even out what you have a little bit if you can. So again, of each of the 4 types, you're going to have an awareness and a fitness. And again, the types, these are the colors, like they're just matching each of these, or the banner on the left. 1 focus type and 1 spirit type. You might not necessarily have 1 attribute card with each of the symbols. Like they might just all have hearts on them. You know, maybe that's the thing you need. So try and just have a variety if you can to try and balance things out. That'll make your life easier. And now at this point, now that you've got your deck of your 30 cards, which is 15 pairs of cards, go back to your chosen specialty and find the roll cards. And if you have the Ranger Doubler, you'll have a couple pairs of those. But base game comes with one of each. The Ranger Doubler gives you another one of each. And then Stewards of the Valley adds a third to each. Each of these will have some sort of ability that you can use once per round, and just read what the ability is and see which one you think is good. And if you can't figure it out and you don't know what the heck you're reading, just pick the one that looks cool. Now, if you have Stewards of the Valley, you'll also have these mini Ranger roll cards, and it took me a little while to figure out what the heck these are. These are just alternate artwork. Mechanically exactly the same. They just match the little wooden meeples if you happen to have the wooden meeples. So if you have these cards, fine, use whichever one you want, but it's just different artwork. It's mechanically exactly the same thing. So that's what these cards are. So pick any one roll, and you're going to place it here in the roll space, and that is your Ranger. So you've got your deck, and now you're ready to go out into the valley. So that's how you build it. Let me give you some general tips now before you go out into the world. One, just a reminder, especially if you just picked everything based off what looks cool, it's probably not going to work. That's okay. Play the first day, just learn the game, learn the mechanics, rebuild your deck the next day when you know more about what the heck you're looking at. But check over your deck now. Make sure you've got some sort of variety of especially gear and moments, but also, attachments and attributes and maybe companions or beings, I should say. Make sure you don't have just all one thing. Make sure you've got some sort of variety of stuff. And hopefully after you did the personality cards and gained those 4 attributes, hopefully you've got a variety of approach icons now. As I mentioned at the top of the basic tests, the most common are the Traverse test and the Connect test, which use fitness and spirit. But then also, if you check the reminder card, these are the symbols. So it uses the Connect symbol, which is the heart, and the exploration symbol, which is the compass. So check your cards, make sure you've got some of those. Those are the tests you're going to be doing the most, so you want to make sure you're kind of loaded up on that. The first time that I played through True Solo, I had 3 awareness and 1 spirit as my aspects, and I couldn't do this Connect test very well at all, and it was really annoying and painful. So I switched things up after the first day, and that was fine. But make sure you can traverse, make sure you can connect. You're going to be probably using those more often than remember or avoid, or at least that's my experience. And my last tip would be value the ability to scout the path deck. So again, the path deck is this one. It sits not on your Ranger mat, but on the other mat. And these are the cards of things you are encountering. So it could be features or beings. There's going to be predators. There's going to be prey. There's going to be obstacles. There's going to be all sorts of stuff in there. But there's frequently going to be something in there that you want to find. And when you scout this deck, that means you can look through the top cards and then place them in any order on either the top and or the bottom of the deck. So, I don't want that. Put it on the bottom. That looks good. I'll keep it towards the top. That sort of thing. So there's a number of cards that allow you to scout the path deck, and that is super important because at the beginning of every round, each Ranger draws 1 path card. And if you don't have a way to scout that deck, you're just going to have to be there drawing cards until you get the thing that you're looking for. And in the meantime, dealing with all these cards that you're drawing because they're going to be doing stuff to you. So if you can quickly look through a lot of this deck and put the thing you want on top and draw it, that's great. So find some way to scout the path deck that is a really useful skill that you will be happy with if you have it. But that is it for my tips for beginners on how to construct your Ranger deck. I hope that was a useful walkthrough. If you have any questions or if you think I missed something, let me know in the comments. I'd be happy to try and help you out. And if you like this video, please be sure to leave a like on it so that I know you like it, so that I know to make more content like this. And subscribe here if you want to see more Earthborne Rangers content. I'm thinking about making some rules refresher videos to kind of teach how to do things like tests or describing the different statuses of cards. If you think that would be helpful, let me know so that I know to do it. Otherwise, be sure to share this video with somebody else who you think might enjoy it. And don't forget, you can always head over to my Ko-fi page, ko-fi. There's a link in the description. You can make a contribution to the channel either one time or monthly, in either case for as little as $1. Everything is helpful and I appreciate it very much. But that's what I've got for you this time on Table for One. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoy your time in the valley, and I will see you in the next video.